Our special guest this episode is Dilip Vengsarkar, an Indian cricket legend in all aspects of the sport. As a player, he was a central member of India's fairy tale 1983 World Cup winning squad.
Well, 1983 we were the least expected to win the World Cup. But having said that, I think we had the belief.
He was one of Wisden's Cricketers of the Year in 1987 and that year also became India's captain. After retiring, he became an administrator and was BCCI's chairman of selectors when India won the first T20 World Cup in 2007.
For the T20 World Cup, I was the chairman of selection committee. And we picked Dhoni as the captain that time.
He also runs multiple academies where he's constantly finding and training the stars of the future.
We have a lot of tournaments, under 12 tournament, under 14 tournament, under 16 tournament, under 19 tournament. So the kids get to play a lot of tournaments.
Join us as this titan of cricket shares his thoughts on what makes a good selector.
When I became selector, so I knew each and every player, and what they're capable of doing in international cricket.
How to grow cricket in the US.
The important thing is that they will have to train the coaches here. So if you start inter-school tournament, inter-college tournament, that will help the game to grow here.
His storied career and so much more. So we're here at the National Cricket League playoffs with Indian legend Dilip Vengsarkar. Dilip, hi, thank you so much for taking time to speak with us.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me here.
So Dilip, I have a few questions to ask you. First, your impression about cricket in the US and the path to growth for cricket in the US.
Well, I came here for the first time in early 80s, And of course, as an Indian team, I think we played few games here, and since then I've not been here, and this is the first time I'm coming here after a long time. And I believe there are a lot of clubs here, especially in East Coast and West Coast. But in Dallas, for the first time, this is a fantastic venue. I think NCL is going to rock. 60 strikes is a great format, and I'm sure people will enjoy it. And this can only grow bigger and better.
So let's talk about the short formats, because obviously during your playing career, there was Test, there was ODI, there's T20, which started afterwards, and T10. So how do you feel about the short formats and especially this T10 format?
See, T20 started in 2007 in India, 2007, 2008. With the IPL. Actually, Indian Cricket Board was the last board to accept that format. And when we went to South Africa for the first time for the T20 World Cup, I was the chairman of selection committee. And we picked Dhoni as the captain that time. And we picked the side that won the World Cup, the inaugural World Cup in South Africa. And since then, I think IPL just took off. And IPL has become very big product. Extremely popular all over the world. And now T10 format, which is shorter. I hope it doesn't get shorter than this.
T1.
I think T10 is fine. T10 is fine because that gets over in 1 hour's time. So it's exciting. And I'm very happy to be part of this.
So Dilip, I want to talk a little bit about your career and the perspectives that you bring. You mentioned the 2007 World Cup. Obviously, you were a member of the legendary 1983 World Cup winning India team. You, as a World Cup champion, tell me what your feelings were this year when India won the T20 World Cup.
Well, since 1983, India has been doing extremely well. I think they are doing very well in all formats of the game. It's not only the shorter format, but even Test match cricket, they're number one. In ODIs, they're number one, and now in T20, they won the World Cup. So it's a good thing. I'm very happy because, IPL has thrown open a lot of talent in India and across the world. So now if you see at the bench strength of Indian team, it's quite strong. And that is very important. And that augurs well for Indian cricket.
I agree with what you're saying about the Indian team being strong. At the same time, they won this World Cup after many years of not winning a World Cup, right? In 2023, they lost in Ahmedabad. They haven't quite gotten over the line in T20 since the inaugural one. What was different about this India team that won the World Cup that actually brought it home?
Well, anything can happen in this format. I think any team can beat any side. See, if you go back and see that match, India versus South Africa. At one stage, South Africa was winning the match. Till Surya Yadav took that catch, and things turned around. So anything can happen at any point of time. But the thing is that Indian team did very well, and as you said, that they haven't won much in ICC, but they're always in last four on the finals. I mean, they just didn't win the final, but they're there, And now since they won the final, so maybe I think the winning streak for them.
Yeah, and you're right. Look, in these formats, they're closely fought matches. Anything can happen. I was at the Kensington Oval. I remember in the press booth when it was the South Africa needed 30 off 30. Everyone thought it was a foregone conclusion, but there was a lot of fight in the England team that they won in the end.
Yeah. I mean, they're an experienced team now. And all the players are young players, but they're very experienced because of the IPL and for in all these games they're playing in India. Because Indian Cricket Board has organized around 10 to 12 test matches per year, and then ODIs also, and plus T20 also.
So let's go back 40 years then. Obviously, India is the powerhouse now. It's the center of the cricket world. But in 1983, that was not the case. In 1983, you were the underdog. So tell me about sort of the feeling and the experience of lifting that World Cup when it was not expected of India.
Well, 1983, we were the least expected to win the World Cup. But having said that, I think we had the belief, I think which is very important. And Kapil Dev, I think in Zimbabwe played that fantastic innings of 175 when we were 17 for 5 at one stage. And he won the match and bowled brilliantly also. So that spurred the entire team to do well in the tournament. I think that motivated everybody, that inspired everybody. And then we beat, I think, England in the semi-finals. And in the final, as you know, what happened.
Just to reflect on that, you later became the captain of India. You've had a long storied career afterwards, but in that moment, right, which when we look back, I think, and a lot of people think is one of the most important moments in cricket history, right? It was an underdog winning the World Cup, but it was what really set India on the path to get to where it is now. When you look back at your career, how do you feel about the fact that in one of the most important moments of Indian cricket history and global cricket history, you were there and you were central?
See, 1983 World Cup win, that was very important. And then in Australia, we in 1984-85, we won the Benson Ages tournament.
Yep.
And where we won against Pakistan in the finals. And also in the first league match against Pakistan in the tournament. And we beat everybody absolutely emphatically. Apart from that, then we beat England in England, where I scored my third test match 100 at the Lord's Cricket Ground. And India won the test match for the first time in England at the Lord's Cricket Ground.
That's right.
Not in England, but at the Lord's Cricket Ground. But since then, if you see the graph of the Indian team is quite high, Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, MS Dhoni, Rohit Sharma, all those guys come in and they are doing absolutely great job.
Yeah. You mentioned Lords, and I wanted to ask you about that. So you had 3 centuries at Lords, right?
No, I scored my first 100 at the Lord's Cricket Ground in 1979.
Yeah.
And in 1982 and 86.
So you had 3.
And in 1990, I scored 52. I was very keen to score the 400.
Tell me about how special that ground is and what it's like hitting a century in that historic hallowed ground.
Well, Lords is always the headquarters of cricket.
Yep.
And we used to listen to the commentary, India, England, Australia, and it is every cricketer's ambition to play at Lords. And I was no exception. So when I went there, if you see that some of the grounds you get really good vibes, positive vibes, And for me, Lords was one of the grounds where I got good positive vibes. And when it's full house, the atmosphere is absolutely electrifying. And you want to do well on that ground, come what may, And when there's such an atmosphere at the ground, so I think they do well. They do best all the time.
So fast forwarding, Dilip, one other area I want to ask you about is, you mentioned you were the chairman of the selectors of the BCCI in the mid 2000s, and that was, among other things, you selected the team that won the 2007 World Cup. In general, because you have this incredible experience, what makes for a good selector and a good job by a selector?
See, what really helped me was that from 2000 to 2004, I was in charge of talent spotters. And my team spotted a lot of talent. I think which played for India. And then we groomed that talent in NCA in Bangalore, National Cricket Academy in Bangalore. NCA at that time, there was supply line to test match cricket those days. And when I became selector, so I knew each and every player, and what they're capable of doing in international cricket. See, basically, I think those guys are mentally tougher. And you have to back them. As selector, you must have courage of conviction. And if you back somebody, then you give them a long rope. And that's how we did. And when I took over as a chairman of selection committee in 2007, India was fifth in ICC ranking. But in 2 years' time, we were number one in all formats of the game.
Absolutely. How do you feel now about with three formats? There is some specialization, right? You'll have some players who will only play white ball cricket, right? Won't play test. And you'll have players who will retire from some formats and not others. You played in an era where everyone played every format. Do you think this sort of specialization that we're seeing now is good for the game, or do you prefer to see players play across formats?
Well, if players play across the format is a great thing. But some players, I think, they want to play only ODIs, and the shorter format of the game. But then it's okay with them in the sense about how you identify them and pick them is up to the selectors.
So the last area I want to speak to you about, Dilip Bhai, is even besides being a selector, you have, been involved even at the earlier stage of development in academies, right? You've run multiple academies, you've started multiple academies where you are finding very young players and you're developing young players. Tell me about, there's a lot of academies in the US, right, that are trying, and they don't always have the right approach because they don't have the experience. What makes for a good academy and administration and management of academy that leads to success?
It's very, very important, especially in the places like USA. In Mumbai, where I come from, we have inter-school tournament, inter-collegiate tournament, inter-club tournament, inter-office tournament. We have a lot of tournaments. Under 12 tournament, under 14 tournament, under 16 tournament, under 19 tournament. So the kids get to play a lot of tournaments. Here in USA, I think there's no cricket in school.
That's right.
So you have to develop that thing in school cricket. And the important thing is that they will have to train the coaches here. So and if you start inter-school tournament, inter-college tournament, that will help the game to grow here. And this is a beautiful ground. You can start a cricket academy here. I think NCL can start its own academy. But the players must come forward. And if you get a local players, that will be the icing on the cake.
Great. Dilip Bhai, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time. It's an honor for us to have a legend like yourself join us. And we look forward to seeing everything else you do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me here.